We're live.
Hello, and welcome to Wine, Whiskey, and Words. I'm Daniel.
I'm Brad.
And if you've listened to our podcast before, welcome back. We're glad to have you again. If you're new to the podcast, just so you know, each week or each episode, I guess, we try something different to drink. Often it's wine or whiskey. Sometimes we branch out. We might try a tequila here and there. I don't think we've done any beer yet. We might try something like we've tried some rum, gin,
Yeah, I guess. Well, I guess we might need to change the name of the podcast. Wine, whiskey, beer,
and other things,
yoo-hoo.
and some
We
words.
could try different flavors of yoo-hoo.
Yeah, but the getting all those domain names is going to be expensive.
Okay.
So
All right.
maybe not.
Whatever.
Anyway, so we have our drink. We talk about the drink. We just share our thoughts on it. Sometimes they might be more insightful and informative than others, but we do our best. And then we talk about something interesting that's happened since the last episode. Those vary a lot. And then finally, we discuss a topic that was presented at the last episode. We often do our best to prep and research. Sometimes we come a little less prepared than others. Uh,
To be clear, you often do your best to research.
Often I do.
Me. I just kind of wing it a lot.
Okay, yeah, we also wing it a fair bit, and mostly we just aim to have a fun and interesting conversation. And with that said, let's begin. Brad, what do you have for us to drink this week?
Well, Daniel, I'm glad you asked. So this is another one of the wines that I got from Naked Wines. Pay us. Um, so the thing that I like about Naked Wines is that they basically we're known as angels. We fund them, and then they use the money to help smaller vineyards and
Okay,
winemakers. So this one is the the Carignan La Grande Reserve from Denis Crespo. So I knew how to pronounce the name Denis, even though it's spelled Denis,
okay.
because we knew someone named Denis back in Jacksonville a while back.
I mean,
A
you might
while
have.
back. I think you met
I
him
have a
too.
goldfish memory,
So,
so
so Denis was born in Bordeaux, lucky place, and that's so he worked interned at a small family winery in Châteauneuf-du-Pape in Rhône. So that's yeah. I'm not going to get into his whole thing, but he really loves making those Southern Rhône style wines. Um, and this particular one is a GSM blend. So GSM, really, when you're looking at it, it stands for Grenache, Syrah, Mourvèdre. This particular one, let's see real quick on that, if I can find that. The proportions on it, which it's not telling me. But I want to say, I believe this particular one was about 50% Grenache, if I am correct. But with the GSMs, that you typically, get a little bit of that peppery from the Syrah. Um, you get a little bit of the bright fruit, sage, herbs, pepper on there. It's just something that's really enjoyable to drink. And Denis likes to make wines that are meant to be enjoyed now and not necessarily ones that are being aged.
okay.
So some of those wines, and like I have at home, I have that I've had for several years. I don't plan on opening for a while, but this is something that's supposed to be enjoyed now. So
So
I
I
look forward
actually did not realize that GSM stood for Grenache, Syrah, Mourvèdre, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that until I was just looking at this bottle. So it's a
Oh,
nice.
it actually says it on.
Yeah,
That's where I remember seeing it. Yeah, it's 50% Grenache, 30% Syrah, 20% Mourvèdre.
yeah.
All
It's a
right, pour
really
yourself.
nice bottle. It's
Yeah.
it's got a lovely little uh like Cirque du Soleil type thing on top of.
Well, it is French.
So we're using the aerator Brad gave me, which I am very grateful for. It's a lovely addition to my home. All right, Brad, I'm going to let you pour some
Yes.
for yourself. So this has a very dark color. Every once in a while, I'll open a bottle, it's red, and I'll pour it out, and I'll be like, "Well, you can almost see through this," but this is like I mean, there is no light coming through this glass. This is I like the nose on this. It's a little bit of sweetness on the smell. And I know you can't smell sweet, but it smells sweet. Sometimes you smell things and it seems like it should be sweet at least.
You get that really jammy.
Yeah. I almost smell
I
like rose petals a little bit.
A little bit. I definitely get the cherry.
Yeah, there's cherry. I feel like a lot of reds you get a little bit
Yeah,
of cherry, but
this is specifically more like those darker cherries that you buy in the grocery store and you just you know go to town on.
yeah, it's a very like bold hit to the front of your mouth when you taste that. It's
You
not gentle on the flavor. It's I mean it's good. It's very good, but
it's smooth, but you also get that sourness in the front.
yeah, I get a good bit of tannins on this. This is pretty.
Yeah, I think I got that sour first, so I the tannins were kind of like an afterthought.
Yeah, it does have an odd sourness to it that I wonder if it will come out as it sits and breathes a little bit.
I like it.
Yeah, it's not too bad. I enjoy it. It's I'm gonna let that one work for a minute. But no, I love the intensity of flavor. I was just drinking a bottle not too long ago that it was very light on the flavor. In fact, one of the Cooper's Hawk wines is more geared towards Thanksgiving, so it's trying not to overpower the flavors of your meal. So this is not that one that you want to have with something that's light flavored because it would overpower some meats and things like that.
Right. Yeah, this one I can kind of envision having it with I mean, let's be fair, I'm vegan, but you would do this one with like a brisket.
Yeah, you weren't always vegan though, and
No,
so
no,
you
no.
know like this would be good. Yeah, I would go with a brisket on
I
this.
know what meat tastes like,
Yeah, you'd need something with a pretty intense flavor for it to go well, but I think it would go well.
but you don't want to do it with a steak.
No, no, no.
Like a lighter red meat.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, good choice, Brad. Again, I'm loving this bottle. Like that, that's a good artistry on the bottle. How do you pronounce this, Brad?
Which
Ki-
carry on,
Carry on. Okay, let's go with that.
carry on my wayward wine.
All right.
You were made from the vine.
On
Uh,
that note, Brad, has anything interesting happened since our last episode?
yeah, I got stuck on Monday.
Get stuck? Where'd you get
Yeah,
stuck?
so I decided I really need to lose some weight, and you know I have no qualms talking about anything going on with me. So I decided, and I had some people that have used Ozempic, and I said, you know what, because I tend to be kind of like more of an obsessive personality. I'm either all in or I'm all out. I decided I needed to try it. So I went ahead and went in on Monday and got stuck. It was nothing at all. The worst part about it was doing this body scan. So when you do the body scan, and apparently different places do it different ways. But this was kind of cool. But you stood on this little circular platform, and there was a little cylindrical thing right in front of you that was scanning you. But you were supposed. They told me put your arms out at a 45-degree angle. And so I'm looking on the screen and I'm trying to make it so my arms are like in the green.
So like 45 degrees, you're holding your arms like
It
right
says
now more in front of your body at a 45 degree.
it said away from the body at 45-degree angle.
Yeah, but
So, well, hold on. Let me
I'm
finish.
describing what's going on for our people who aren't watching.
So what happened is I'm holding out my arms at a 45-degree angle. And I'm looking on the screen and I see one arm turns green. Good. Let's get the other one. The other one turns green. Nope, now the other one's not. And I'm trying this for 5 minutes. it ain't happening. So I put my clothes back on because they have you do this in your underwear. And I open up the door. She says, "Okay, you're done." I'm like, "I haven't even started." So um, I told her what's going on. She goes, "It's supposed to be arms at the sides." So I did that, got it right away, did that, and that was fine. When she did the shot was really easy.
Where do they do the shot? It's like right in the butt.
No, in the stomach,
Oh, okay.
in the stomach. So um, you really, when you're doing this, you really kind of have to watch what you're eating, what you're drinking. So, like literally, I would. I'm sure my mother will love this. So, I would normally have probably half a bottle of wine a night. Sometimes I might have a little bit of whiskey as well. Now, I've had more tonight, only having maybe 2 glasses than I had in the last probably 5 days combined.
Okay.
Doing a lot more water, trying to get a bit more exercise. I'm already down a few pounds, and that's not even from the Ozempic, which it takes usually about a week to take effect.
Hmm.
So it's, you know, I'd rather do that than some of the more extreme ways to
Oh, you mean
lose weight.
like surgery and stuff like that?
Surgeries,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That's a scary step. I've had one major surgery in my adult life, and that would be a very
Yeah.
last
I
resort for
mean,
me.
I know it definitely works for people. I have friends and family who have done it and it works for them. But it's like for me, I would rather do this and see how it works for me, but I think ultimately in the long run it's going to work out well.
So I'm totally gonna be like, what's the update, Brad? As we continue
Oh,
to
no
have
doubt.
episodes, because I think it's a cool journey to hear about. I don't know that I could do that. I don't like needles, but
I don't like I freaking hate needles. I abhor needles. But the needle is about this big
oh wow,
and it's super thin.
interesting.
Like I I had to get my blood drawn that morning prior.
Yeah,
That hurt more than that other needle did.
interesting.
So not only that, I'm gonna end up doing it to myself.
Oh, nope, nope, nope. That is a non-starter for me. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, that. Yeah, so maybe I'm curious to hear your journey, and I love that journey for you, Brad. But yeah, nope. There's no way I could give myself an injection. I would.
I'll do it for you.
I'm sure you would. Um. Anyway, so let's see. Oh, this past weekend, my mom had set up a large family camping trip. We do this. Our family does this about once a year. Um, when I was growing up, we would camp all the time. I was in Boy Scouts, so like sometimes it was just straight up tent camping. No running water and like we have to hike in and all that stuff. Others, we were at a place that might have running water, might have electricity, things like that. My parents had campers of various shapes and sizes. But Jamie, my wife, is not a camper, and any of our listeners who know her, camping is just not her things. But she was a trooper. We went glamping this time. And if you've never heard of glamping or never seen one of the tents, they're actually kind of cool. They're pretty heavy canvas. They build them on these like platforms, and they're the size of maybe like a small studio apartment. At least this one was. Had electricity. There was a refrigerator and a coffee maker. Which, hey, you put a coffee maker next to me, I'm pretty happy most places. Um, had like a full bed, had a couch and all kinds of stuff, and it was a neat experience. It was a little pricey. We were in the middle of nowhere in Florida, sort of the armpit of Florida. That's, I guess, I'm sure the locals would love hearing me refer to it that way. Near a place called High Springs. If you've ever heard of the Itchituckney River, it is a place people go tubing.
Itch me, touch me.
Yeah, it's a beautiful river, but the water is 72 degrees year round. So even in the summertime, you will freeze if you are in that water too long. But we did not go on the river, but we were near there, and yeah, glamping was I would do it again. I don't know that. I think the cost would factor in heavily because it was about, I want to say it was like 150 a night. I mean, it was,
That's not bad.
yeah, but considering like most places where you're not in a big city, you can usually get a decent hotel for under that. It wasn't great.
Yeah.
Um,
How much alcohol did Jamie have?
Jamie had surprisingly little.
Really?
I
I would have thought that would be a requirement for her to even do that.
Well, we've been trying to cut back and be a little healthier, although opinions may differ when they watch me. Um, but we have been trying to cut back as well. So she said, I'm not gonna drink a lot. I was trying to stick to seltzers over the weekend, and I did well. I had some Topo Chicos and then some High Noon makes a good seltzer. So kind of went the gamut there, but no, like I said, High Springs is a cute little town. There's a couple little restaurants and bars and things that I wouldn't complain about. The closest bar to this glamping place was called the Suicide Possum. I thought it was a biker bar because the first time we drove by in the daytime, it was filled. The parking lot was filled with bikes, motorcycles. But no, it turns out it's kind of a tiki bar inside. So if you're ever in the Fort White High Springs area of Florida, swing by the Suicide Possum and tell them we sent you.
Oh, one other thing I think I had mentioned before that I had to go to Chicago.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I just found out a few days ago that David and Benny were convicted.
Oh,
Um, but
doing doing. That was my
yeah,
Law and Order attempt.
but they're not going to be. We've got to wait until probably close to summer to find out jail time.
What?
Yeah,
Like convicted? Ah, yeah. Just hang
yeah.
around, guys. We'll get to
Let
you in a little
Let's
bit.
just wait till you're dead.
Wow.
But yeah, so we've got to wait a while to see.
Yeah, man. White collar crimes get a different treatment, don't they? All right. So our topic that I'm that actually Brad gave to me last time because I was woefully unprepared, and I am equally unprepared for this one. Uh, was caring for elderly loved ones. Um, when Brad mentioned that, I was like, "Huh, it's a neat topic that's got a lot of layers to it," and I think it's worth discussing because Brad and I both have parents who are aging. My wife has parents who are aging, and I think, and it's not just parents. We have other people in our lives who are aging
Yep. Yeah,
every day.
my mother's really old.
Your mom looks so young and
Yeah, I'm
energetic.
only saying that because
Like,
chances are she'll probably watch this.
hi, mom.
Yeah, she'll probably call me a blank blank.
So, like, lately this has been on my mind a lot. And Dad, if you're listening, I'm sorry. You can do with this what you want, but this has been on my mind a lot. My dad has had some health issues, and a couple years ago he was doing great getting them under control, and then just had a series of setbacks that I mean, he had AFib, which went on for several months before they got it straightened out. Then he had an Achilles injury. I mean, it was just one thing after another, and it seems to have it just won't give up. And Dad's really struggling, and it's gotten to the point. And I guess, Mom, I'm also sorry that when my mom calls and I'm not expecting the call, my initial reaction is, "Oh God, Dad's died." If it's an odd time, especially like if it's like middle of the workday, and that's terrible. But when Brad mentioned this
And you're
topic,
not even Jewish.
oh, no, but when Brad mentioned this topic, um, it kind of struck me that like this is something that I've had to start thinking about. Is like as my parents age, as other people age, like what do we need to do? And it's something that's uncomfortable to think about, but I think it's worth at least having in your mind understanding the options, because it's really impactful, and you have to think about not only what are you going to do for them and with them, um, but what are you going to do for yourself? How are you going to manage that? And I guess I started off with how am I managing it, and lately managing it's probably been with too much wine. So, Brad, do you have any? You want to take a minute? I need a second.
Yeah. So when you're broaching the subject, first of all, you can either you can look at it from a few different ways. You can look at it and go, oh my God, you know, my parents are at the age now, they can't take care of themselves. And what are you going to do at that point? Or you can take a look and go, okay, I know my parents are getting older. Um, what can I do to be proactive? And so there are like long-term care policies. Nowadays, people are you know living to be much longer. My great uncle Mike, he had gotten a policy, and when he got that policy,
You're talking
he
about like an insurance policy?
yeah.
Oh,
He had gotten one, and I remember my mother telling me that he got it. He said, once I go into a home, I'm not going to live for 5 years, so I'm going to get a 5-year policy. So he got that policy. He lived another few years past that, and the at that point in time, and this is like 15, 20 years ago, the it would cost about 30 grand a year for a retirement home.
that's compared to what it is today, though. Like that's nothing.
But that's, I mean, inflation.
Yeah,
So you can spend, I mean, if you're someone that's in their in their 50s, for on the low side, you could spend a grand a year, um, for long-term care insurance. Obviously, much better if you're younger, but if you're younger, a lot of times I feel like your focus tends to be a little bit elsewhere.
yeah.
Um, you know, money for your family and whatnot. Uh, but to spend $1,000 or even 2 to 3 a year, to know that when it comes time that you're going to be, you know, you can't care for yourself anymore, you don't have to worry.
Yeah, I mean, one of the few we were talking about preparedness for these podcasts, and I just got busy and things happened, and I didn't really prepare well.
He
But one of
was
the
he was drinking.
probably, but one of the few things I did look up was the cost of um, skilled nursing facilities or nursing homes, or they are different. I've learned, but they are about $9,000 to $10,000 a month if you're just paying outright. And that's a big chunk of change. So even if your policy costs $30,000 a year, there's an argument that it makes sense in this day and age. Now, obviously, you'd have to do that within a few years of needing said home or facility.
more
But
than more than a few years. I
yeah,
mean, it's yeah. But I think not to cut into that, but I want to say like 9 or 10 grand a year. I think that's more for the higher end.
well, that's a,
Like
yeah. I mean,
that's
that's probably without insurance. That's probably just straight up.
But that's for, like, you need round the clock care. You are not in good shape at all.
Yeah,
If
I
you're
don't.
looking for like the average return, like those ones you see in the movies where they're a little bit active and whatnot, a little bit active, um, somewhat. I mean, but you're not necessarily looking at 9 or 10K a month, but you're still looking at at least $3,000 to $4,000 a month,
Oh, I'm
which is
sure.
still substantial.
Well, the one thing to keep in mind is like there's a broad range. So you have like your assisted living where they have medical staff on site, but more or less you're left independent. There's just somebody there if you need help picking something up or move it or whatever, or need some medical assistance, all the way up to like you're stuck in a bed by yourself and it's round the clock care. So yeah, that's a good point, Brad.
Well, thank you, Daniel.
One of the things I've always found, like going back to what you were talking about as far as like planning ahead, what's hard is with insurance, you mentioned, the 5-year policy. So I've always had a really hard time thinking like in terms of a term with insurance because like, okay, so I'm, 42 now. Well, a 30-year policy, yeah, that'll get me to basically retirement, maybe a little beyond, and then I'm screwed and I've lost all this money is the way I'm looking at it. And I get the security of it and all that, but it's very hard for me at my age to think forward and go, yeah, this is a good investment.
Well, but see, that's the wrong mindset. It's not an investment. So if you're looking, and now I think what you're looking at
Well,
is
anytime you're going to spend a lot of money, it hopefully is an
well,
investment.
Well,
I mean, I think I'm not saying that in terms of like
the traditional,
expecting a massive return. I'm
right?
just saying like it is an investment of money into hopefully something that's
Yeah,
of value.
but what the way that you have to look at it is this: is that and I think what you're referring to is more in the lines of like life insurance
Okay, yeah,
rather than
that's fair.
long-term care. But if you're looking in terms of life insurance, I never tell people, and I do have my license to sell insurance. I don't put a big focus on it, but I've done it in the past, and I hold my license now. I don't tell people you shouldn't be getting it um, because you're looking at um, making your family rich in any way. You're looking at getting it because you have a certain need, okay, um, for a specific period of time. You know,
My thing is, and this is the hard thing about death, though. Like, it's kind of like having your bucket list. Like, when do you start your bucket list? Because, like, you know, yes, I could die when I'm 100, but I could also die next month.
you
And
start
so,
your bucket list now.
yeah, I mean, probably should. But it's very hard to project forward and say, well, I'm going to have this need for this amount of time. Like and again, you're right. I don't have any background in insurance and have only like skimmed the surface. But like my thing is, it's very hard to think forward and go, well, how long do I need this for? Because you hear people that die at 40 or younger, sadly. But you also hear people who live to be 100 years old. And, I'd feel like a chump if I was spending $1,000 a year, even though that's, I guess, to some, not a lot of money. And then I've spent $30,000, and why? And I get the
Well,
security.
okay. Let me put it this way: how would you feel as if you didn't do it, and then next year you're putting it into a home, and within a year you're bankrupt, and then you can't stay there anymore?
And I think that's the argument in
Yeah.
favor of it. And I think as a preparation thing, I wasn't thinking that when we talked about this topic, like in terms of preparation, other than it makes sense. It just
Let me
it's
put
hard
it
to look forward
let me
when you're young.
let me put it in a different way. How would you feel if Jamie had to sell the house and go live with her parents because you didn't prepare for what was going to happen to you?
And that's fair. I think that's a fair thing to think about. And I mean, looking at it when we're talking about our loved ones, like right now, how would I feel if mom and dad had to get rid of everything? Um, I remember my grandmother. Um, there was a big deal, and I've read a little bit about it. So basically, if you don't have the money to pay for this out of pocket, which most people don't, you can get Medicaid to pay for some degree of this stuff. But the problem with that is you're limited to like you can only make like $3,000 a year from anything. You can't have any assets. You have to basically get rid of everything, and you can't do it right before you need this. You have to know at least like I think it's 5 or 6 years or something in advance, and like you have to get rid of everything because they're going to look back and say, "Oh, well, you gave all this stuff to your kids last year. Nah, nah, nah. They got to give that back if you want to." Um, that's considered an asset. So like, it is a big challenge, and I think you're right. I think it's one of those things we don't think about is like planning forward for the next X number of years to what do we do to take care of our loved
Yeah.
ones.
But now let's shift it into a different way.
Okay.
Let's take a look at you know dealing with our family members who are getting older, who might not, you know, things might not be the same as they used to be.
Yeah.
You know, how are they dealing with that? How are we dealing with it? And how are you know what are we doing to be there for them?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting thing. My grandfather passed away not long ago, I guess in the last couple of years. And toward the end he had dementia, so he had been very animated and intelligent, and he would talk a lot prior to the dementia really setting in. But he'd gotten to the point where he just kind of often would just sit around and whistle, and just wasn't super active. Um, and it was very hard on everyone who loved him to watch. And I'm certain it must have been hard on him in his moments of lucidity to experience that. And I'd imagine, like, as it grew, because it's not, it's kind of a progressive thing that gets worse and worse. Um, it must have been really hard to observe, or to experience firsthand and observe, for the people who were closest to him.
Yeah. I mean, we remember how we were when we were younger and how we are now. And we just kind of have to put ourselves in our loved one's shoes and be an ear for them.
And I think it's really hard, um, staying patient, I guess. And I mean, I personally have struggles with being patient with myself, because even though I'm not that old, you know, there was a time when I didn't, sneeze and throw my neck out of whack. And now it happens more often than I'd like to admit. And so, like, it requires some patience. And, when you're so used to this loved one being capable and being able to do X, Y, and Z, and all of a sudden they can't, I, yeah, that's pretty
This
rough.
is you. You reminded me of a very old Twilight Zone episode.
Okay.
I mean, so I haven't seen this in like probably 30 or 40 years, but I seem to remember it centered around the this family and the grandfather who apparently had died, but he refused to die.
Okay.
And I distinctly remember them being at the dining room table, and I think it was one of the kids who ended up putting like too much pepper on Grandpa's food, and Grandpa sneezed, and his like nose came off,
Oh my God.
and that's when he realized, yeah, I think it's time. I'm gonna go to my room, and then passed away. But not that we're talking about death here, um, but I think it's sometimes we fight who we are becoming, where we have to live in the now, accept the person that we've become, and embrace it.
Yeah, the challenge is, and this is something that I think it makes it harder to help someone you love if they're not the extreme case where they're completely just, uh and I apologize, as an offensive thing to say, but off the rocker. um you know it's really hard when someone doesn't believe they have an issue. And I promise I'm not getting political. I'm truly just providing this for context because it's something we can relate to. Age was a big thing in this most recent election, and there was a lot of attacks on our president, or about his age, and saying, "Oh, well, and ultimately he said, yeah, maybe it's time for me to drop off." But there, obviously were people who were saying you should have dropped off a long time ago. And that's one thing when it's some jerk who doesn't like you anyway that's saying that. But when it's your child who says, "Mom or Dad, hey, look, you can't do this anymore. You can't drive." Oh my God! Like, telling someone they can't drive is, that's a good way to start a fight and get disinherited.
Yeah,
But these are some difficult conversations, and I know this is kind of a dark topic, but I think it's something to think about. And honestly, I apologize. I probably should have thought about it more before I came into this episode.
I do not accept your apology.
That's fine. I'll probably do it again.
Yeah, but the interesting thing is that I do feel that you know the thresholds of what we can do keep getting higher. And I say that because I remembered specifically, this is probably about 25 years ago, that I I had left it was one of my relatives' dinners, but it was in the more the South Miami area, and I remember my grandmother leaving, and she's getting on the highway driving 30 miles an hour. And the funny thing is I'm like going, well, my mother's the same age or roughly right around as my grandmother was then. My mother might be even a little bit older, but she's a hell of a lot better driver than my grandmother was and much more capable.
Yeah, it's really hard because aging isn't it doesn't happen to us all the same. And there's no real rhyme or reason. You know, you have people who are very active and really have it together who suddenly, just they rapidly decline. And then you have people who seem to be very youthful up until they're 100 years old, and they seem fine. They move around, they take care of themselves, and it's not a big deal. So when we have to have those conversations of, hey mom, you might need somebody to be here to help you, or at least come in to help you clean the house, or whatever that limited degree is. It can be even harder because we don't have a clear measure of like when it's necessary.
Yeah. And I think sometimes we don't see what's happening to ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, we our biggest blind spots are often the one in the mirror. You know, we look and you don't want to believe that you're not, the high school track star or whatever, whatever you may
I've
have been.
never been to high school track.
Well, whatever you were when you were younger, you don't want to believe that like you're not just as capable and able. One of the things I guess that's coming to me as I think about this, a couple years ago, mom and dad were talking about just like estate planning, and it's unfortunately one of those things you have to think about. And I guess it's kind of part of this is, people don't think about it. It's uncomfortable to talk about our approaching death, and whether we're going to die at 100 or 55, it's coming, for all of us, and day by day. And being able to talk about these things, and I think if there's some a takeaway I can give at this point in the podcast, it's, we probably ought to start having those conversations before they're necessary with
I'm
our.
gonna let you have that conversation with my mother.
Well, she said she'd invite me over for dinner, so we can
Right.
we can
This is
we can
true.
talk. Then I'll never be invited again.
Right.
Hey, thanks for dinner.
Hey,
You want to talk about this?
we want to talk about your coffin.
Well, I want to be cremated and fired out of a cannon. So that's my. But I guess we're not really talking about
I'm
aging
I'm
loved
gonna
ones. I feel like
I
expired loved ones
I
is.
kind of figured I would cremate you, and then I would get on um, one of the floats at Mardi Gras, and then hand out beads that are made from your ashes.
I wouldn't complain about that. I could probably get behind that.
Yeah, I thought so.
You'd have to get like and God, this is probably offensive, but like a voodoo person. I don't know. What are people who practice voodoo called? Or do they have a name?
Um,
I don't. I feel
I
like
don't
witch
I
doctor
don't
is probably not the appropriate term.
but it might not be far off.
But
But
yeah, like I feel like you'd probably need somebody to like make that happen and be like bless them so that like these people are
okay,
carrying me around the world with them.
we can do that.
Let's make it happen. God, we went in a weird direction here. So
Yeah.
back to aging loved ones, not expired loved ones. Um, I it's really hard. I had a friend um some years ago. Oddly enough, I've had two friends that had ALS now, but I had a friend some years ago who was diagnosed with ALS, and he was very much into guns. And um, coworker who was also his friend and I were very concerned that he was actually going to commit suicide, thinking like, I don't want to live like this. And I think that's something that's really sad and scary on on the younger, I guess the person who's the caregiver's side of this topic is like, how will our family or how will our loved ones react as they acknowledge that their bodies are declining? And I guess in that case it wasn't age, it was a disease, but I think the impact is the same.
Right.
um
I think, although it tends to be, I think in most cases a little bit quicker and more I mean,
yeah,
this is happening to someone that might be 40 or 50 or 60 rather than someone that might be 70 or 80.
yeah, yeah, I can see that. I sadly I don't really have the answers. I do think, gosh, I think like I said, I'll probably take away from this that like at some point in the near future I need to sit down with my family, and not that this is necessary now, not that like I'm expecting to put them in a home, but just when that time comes, like what do they want it to be like? um I have a friend of mine who talks a lot about, he's a white guy married to a black woman, and um he talks a lot about the cultural differences and how we handle things like aging and disability, and how uh, there's a perception, and I don't know that it's true. I've not done any research. I'm truly just speaking to what I've heard and what I've been told. There's a perception that white people are more likely to take a disabled person or an elderly person and just put them in a home for one reason or another. And this is not a judgment thing. It's just the perception. But uh, whereas in black culture, you're more likely to see that loved one, as long as possible, kept with the family.
So I'm going to adopt my mother into a black family.
Okay, well, yeah, let's do it.
Done.
Well, if there's anyone out there that no,
Yeah.
it's probably inappropriate,
If you want a short white woman,
but no, I mean, I do think there are cultural differences. I'm under the impression that that more nuclear household um, is more common in different cultures than others.
well,
In some cultures.
there's many cultures that uh, that when when you get married, your parents move in with you.
Hmm. Yeah, and when you think about it, that's often the the track to making sure people have homes is, or you just stay with your parents and they move into the guest room, and I mean, there are different paths to that. That God, I lost my train of thought here.
That's
Go
okay.
for it, Brad.
That's okay. Um, but you know, to kind of wind it down, we just really have to be cognizant of ourselves, our family, and just enjoy the now, but prepare for the future.
Yeah, I think, again, in addition to talk about it early before it's the immediate problem that you have to solve, I think something that I think is really important is when you're going through it, um, no matter what the degree of impact is on your loved one, keep in mind that they're going through it too, that their feelings are important as well, um, that it's not just your frustration and suffering. Um, and you know,
Let's see.
we can't call mom on. Are you calling mom?
Why not?
I don't know how the microphone's going to work, but we'll give it a shot.
We'll see.
She doesn't want to listen.
We'll see if she answers. Oh,
She's probably off driving the Corvette or something.
well, no, it's not 9 o'clock yet, so she isn't asleep.
Well, she's obviously busy.
Whatever, mom. Oh, there she is.
Hi, mom. You're
Hello.
live. You're live on
You're
podcast.
you're on our podcast.
No!
You
Yeah,
are.
we're talking about putting you in a home.
No,
Okay.
I didn't say that.
It's gonna have 5 bedroom, 4 bath,
On the beach.
a pool table, a movie theater.
Okay, that sounds like a fair compromise, Brad.
We're just gonna cremate you now. No,
God, good God, Brad.
no, we're just to no, we're basically talking about you know dealing with aging loved ones and you know just how the mindset of how and I mentioned how you are more cognitively aware, a better driver, whatnot, than Grandma Bruce was at the same age or even younger.
That's because I'm still working.
Oh, well,
Oh.
she never worked.
I really believe that otherwise I would have been gone a long time ago.
Oh,
So
jeez.
are you saying that we should just make our aging loved ones work and for the rest of their lives?
Yeah, because you lose this, you lose this.
Okay.
That's
You
fair.
know,
You gotta keep
the
your brain
mind.
working.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right. All right. Well, I just wanted to get your 2 cents. All right.
Okay, it's a nickel.
It's a nickel.
Yeah,
Great.
we'll send you half of everything we make on this episode.
Yeah. All right. I'll talk to you soon.
Enjoy.
All right.
Okay, bye.
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 All right. I hope you all were able to hear that because it's
We'll
it's
find out soon
it's
enough.
it's always a lucky thing when you get to hear from mom.
Yes. Yeah. She
Um,
she said that the key is continue to work.
yeah, and I think that's a good point. Like even if you're not working like for a career, like just work. Like use your hands, use your brain, do things that challenge you and make you active.
Keep your on your feet either physically or mentally.
Yeah, or both preferably.
Yeah. There we go.
So, well, I think this was a good episode. I'm sorry for the disorganized manner in which we approached it, but I think we had a good conversation, and I think um, I'm certainly going to leave this and probably think about some things and possibly even start some conversations that may be really uncomfortable.
Well, that should be interesting.
Yeah, I'll report back on how it goes. Brad, do you want to add anything else about this topic?
No, I do not.
Okay. Okay. I think we'll leave it to mom with the last word. But Brad, what's our next episode's topic?
Well, we're getting into the holiday season now, and so we're going to talk about holiday traditions.
Okay.
Um, so do your research, not your research, but just dredge up those memories of past Christmas for you, Passover for me, Easter, any holidays that you celebrated when you were younger, and what they were like for you.
Okay. Or even like how they've changed over the years, I think would be a good approach to that one as well.
Well, yeah, I mean that's the point. How did you celebrate them when you were younger, and
Yeah.
then how do you celebrate them now?
Yeah, I think it's a great topic, Brad. I'm looking forward to it. Brad, any final thoughts that you want to share?
Oh my goodness. Um, be patient with people. You know, we're whatever side, and I told Daniel a while back we would not make this political, but you got to take a look at whatever side that you were on in this battle. Um, there's a winner and a loser, and I think that the winner is ultimately the person that handles this in the right way. Um, you have to be compassionate. You have to have empathy and treat people the right way.
So, just for to be clear, it is the day after the 2024 election, and tensions have been and are high. I actually the other night had a long conversation with a guy who was the exact opposite side from me politically. Um, and we left that conversation in very good. It was a great conversation. We were very friendly and cordial, and we left that conversation both agreeing to try to uh, just acknowledge and manage our fears. And I can say this as I'm thinking about this. Almost every election in my adult life, there have always been people who this is the end of America, and I will admit with this particular one, I had some of that fear as well. But in every one of those elections, no matter how bad I felt things got, or good I felt things got, and how bad others felt things got, or whatever, America was okay. You know, one of the things we have is that we are this massive group of people who we care. You know, we're passionate, and sometimes we disagree angrily and even violently at times. But um, America tends to prevail because we do love who we are and where we are. So I agree, Brad. Just be patient, love one another, appreciate that. You know, even though the sky may feel like it's falling, if you look back at your life, most of the time when it felt like that, it probably didn't actually happen that way.
And realistically, in a few years, you'll be dead anyway.
Yeah,
So.
great book by Daniel Sloss is Everyone You Hate Is Going to Die. Highly recommend it. It is a comedy. It is a delightful comedy adventure, and honestly, I would say I actually haven't read this book. I've only listened to it on audiobook. Daniel Sloss does his own narration, and it is incredible. Well worth the expense of downloading that audiobook and listening to it. He gets very serious at times. He's very funny at times. Great book. Everyone You Hate Is Going to Die. Don't
All
get
right,
mad.
I'm gonna need to check that out.
So check it out. Well, with that, please also check us out on Apple and Spotify podcasts. We will also post the video on YouTube.
Yep.
And you can reach out to us by email at winewhiskeyandword. Somebody stole our S at gmail.com. But our website is winewhiskeyandwords.com. I got nothing else. Is there anything? Am I missing something, Brad? Is there another? Oh, are we on like Instagram or something?
We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook.
We're on the book face.
Yes.
Okay.
We are not on Twitter per your request.
Yeah, I nope. Not gonna support that particular individual.
But realistically, the thing that I found ever since Elon purchased it is I will pull up. I still will call it Twitter, and a lot of times it'll go to the for you rather than who I'm following. So it forces me to watch other people that I don't want to see.
Speaking of individuals who need some care while they're aging, he needs some help.
All right.
So anyway, all right. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we look forward to seeing you next episode. Thank you again.
Peace out.
Cheers.